Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Pure Faith Podcast, a podcast where we discuss all things Bible. I am Michelle, and this is...
Hi, I'm Mitchell.
We ask that you like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to hit the notification icon to be notified when new episodes are released. Are you trying to play games on this thing?
I'm watching YouTube Kids.
No, you should not watch YouTube Kids.
Why not?
Because. All right, well, you're doing that quick story.
Okay.
So,
quick story.
We had a viewing yesterday. I had a viewing yesterday. Daniel and I did. Yes, I know you probably didn't hear that. Our Daniel swim coach, his mother passed away, and she had been suffering of bone cancer.
Okay.
So he knew after districts, which was a few weeks ago, that he wasn't going to be able to coach the state swim meet. And he said that that was going to be his last meet. And, you know, we were sad about it, but we understood. I did not know at the beginning of the swim season, because he wasn't going to coach, that his mother was battling bone cancer. Had no idea. I felt terrible when I found out. Because, you know, Daniel and Caleb both were like, well, we're not going to swim if you're not a coach. And I think we made him almost feel bad that, you know, they weren't going to go out. So anyhow, long story short, she passed away on Monday. And we had the viewing on Wednesday. And so we went. I am standing in this line. Daniel went with his buddies. They were about, 7 people behind me. So I'm standing by myself. I get into the room where the viewing is, and I feel overwhelmed. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go. I look at my Fitbit. My pulse is at 157. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to pass out. I look over to see his mother in the casket, and she's got a head wrap on. You know, it just brought back a lot of memories. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. I pull out my phone, and I don't know if you're supposed to do this when you're at a funeral home or not. I pull out my phone, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Olivia, I'm having an anxiety attack right now. I'm at this viewing. And she's like, Mom, don't do this to me.
Oh, that was my plan.
I'm like, what? She's like, stop it. I'm like, Olivia, like my pulse is 157. She's like, breathe, Mom. And I'm like, I'm trying to breathe. She's like, just know I love you. And I'm like, oh, so now I'm not supposed to cry. Just know I love you. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So, you know, I started doing breathing techniques. I'm like, okay, it's fine. All is good in the world, you know. And, you know, I get through to, I get through to the dad, I give my condolences. I get to the oldest sister. The second sister is a Michelle. Bawling, just bawling, you know, and she's got all 5 of her kids there, and her husband. I'm like, oh, for gosh sake. So I instantly start bawling. I said, I'm sorry for your loss. Just know that the grief will always, it'll come in waves, but there'll be peace in all of it. You will find joy in all of this. And she was like, thank you so much. She's like, you're the first person to come through to let us know that we will find peace in this. And I said, my sister passed away 5 years ago. And of course I'm sobbing. And I said, I'm sorry. She's like, no. I said, she passed away of cancer. And I said, I will still cry, you know, periodically. I said, but I find so much joy in knowing that she's in heaven. And she's like, thank you so much. And her kids are just all looking at me. And I'm like, I am so sorry. And the husband's like, no, don't worry about it. I'm like, don't worry about it. Like, they're traumatized. I'm probably the only person that's sobbing that's not in their family as they're coming through the line. So I get to Mark, and Mark Travis, that's his name. And, you know, he gives me this big hug, and I said, Mark, I'm so sorry. I'm like sobbing. He's like, no, it's fine. And he holds my hands, and he said, I just want you to know that your mom and I went to sectionals, and we saw him there. We weren't able to make it to districts because Don and I were out of town. And he goes, I just want you to know that your mom, and he's like, I didn't know that you guys went through that loss. At sectionals, we told him we lost our sister. Mom lost her daughter. I said, we also lost my dad to a heart attack, 2 years ago. Said our brother had kidney cancer. He just had a kidney removed. He's like, he had no idea any of this happened to our family. And I said, it's okay. I said, there's peace in all of it. There's joy. I said, it's so hard to see them suffer, but just know that, you know, when this battle is over, that she is going to be free of all of that, and she's going to be in heaven, and you'll see her again. And he told me at the viewing, he's like, to have your mom and you come to me like that. He's like, I never viewed any of this the way you guys had spoke to me about it. He's like, you guys brought me so much peace. And he, you know, he's a very Catholic man. He is from Minster. He's always been involved in the Minster Church. And he's like, but I've just never had that peace before. And I felt like that was my way of giving back with all of this. But it was so hard. So then, yeah, Mom, you're in Florida, enjoying the sunshine. I call Mom. I actually called her twice that day. Called her in the morning. She's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm busy. I'm at an antique tractor thing. She's like, I'll call you later. I said, okay, that's fine. I call her on my way home from the viewing because this was very hard for me. I'm bawling. Like, I tried to call her. She's like, Mom, I'm climbing. I can't cry here, Mom. I'm like, whatever. Fine, I'll call Grandma. She answers. I'm like, Mom. She's like, yeah. I'm like, what you doing? She's like, I'm playing cards. I said, oh, okay, well, I went to the viewing. She's like, well, I'm playing cards right now. I'm like, oh, for gosh sakes. I'm like, nobody wants to talk to me right now. She's too busy playing cards that she can't talk to me right now. But she's having a great time. She said she was. She did talk to me for a little bit, but she was quick to hang up. You know, one of those conversations where like, yeah, I'll pass right now. Yep. Okay. Yep. Got your bed. Yep. Okay. All right. I gotta go. Like, whatever. So, gotta love her. But yeah. So that was my story while you were getting ready for Bible study. I know, right?
It took me like 10 seconds to get ready.
Well, I didn't know. So I just told my story. Because really, I told the one sibling, I said, I'm very humbled to be here through all of this. Because I was humbled to be there. Because I don't know, my tears probably scared most of them. But, in all of it brings me more peace. So, but 157 is what my pulse got up to.
That's like crazy.
Like, I thought I was going to fall over. And I was like, I started breathing. I looked down. I was like, okay, it's getting there. 132. Breathing. Deep breath. And the guy in front of me was like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, fine. I got this. And then I had a priest behind me. I was like, if I fall, are you going to catch me? Like,
trust fall.
Yeah, right. So then I got down to 89 and I felt much better. But yeah, that's
89 is still high. Well,
it was 89 until I left. You calm down then. I just had a lot of, and I was like, why were you so worked up? I'm like, that scarf on her head did it. And you could just tell she was she had suffered cancer, and I was just like, it just brought back so many memories. So, but yeah, it'll be 5 years in April. Story. 5 years. So, and I told the story without crying. I'm pretty proud of myself right now.
That is actually rather impressive.
It really is, because I'm really fighting. Oh, you know me.
Well, I don't have anything.
You have nothing?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, you live a boring life.
Well, yes, I do.
His son Zeke FaceTimed me yesterday. It was so funny. It was so funny because he said he FaceTimed me in the morning, like it's 7:15 or something. And I was like, hey Zeke, how are you? And he's like, so he goes from, like, when you FaceTime, I can see his face, to he's got it up to his cheek and he's whispering into the phone. And I'm like, I can't hear you. And so then he whispers again and he whispers again. I said, Zeke, I cannot hear you. And he said something about house. I said, you need me to come to your house? I didn't know. I thought maybe they were sick and he needed me to come to his house. He's like, no. And Mitchell goes, Zeke, that is not what you're supposed to be asking her. And I was like, what are you supposed to ask me? Like, I have no idea what's going on. He said, can I come to your house? And Mitchell's like, that's not what you're asking her. Can you pick me up after school? Yes. And then keep me at your house? I'm like, oh my gosh. But I took a picture of this, and I don't know if I sent it to you or not.
No.
You should see his face in this picture. I was like, oh my gosh, you are the cutest. But he tried to whisper so his dad wouldn't hear him. Asked to come to my house. It was so cute. So cute.
It was pretty funny.
It was funny. But he did not stay at my house, just so you know. It tore my heartstrings, but I took him to the babysitter.
I was told that he's staying at your house tomorrow, though.
Yeah. We might have to change that plan.
I don't care.
We'll see. I gotta see what my work schedule is, but he might be able to come tomorrow. I'll have to figure it out. But yeah, I did bribe him. He didn't tell you anything else, did he?
He didn't tell me that. Paige told me that.
She didn't tell you anything else, did she?
No.
So that means he didn't tell you how many cookies he had at my house for bribery.
Why was he even at your house?
I had to pick him up from school.
Yeah,
We
take him to
walked-
Heidi's.
No, we walked back to the house.
Okay.
He let Wyatt out to go potty. He let Phoebe out to go potty. And then he said, "Can I watch some TV?" And I said, "You get 10 minutes." So we turned on the TV and he didn't want to leave. He wanted a snack. I said, "Well, you can have a cookie." And he's like, "All right." And then he didn't want to leave yet. And I said, "Well, if you don't tell your mom, you can have 2 more cookies." He's like, "Okay." So he put his shoes on. He had 2 more cookies, and then he found Cheez-Its in my vehicle. And so he had Cheez-Its and cookies and all kinds of junk. And then I dropped him off to Heidi. Hey, you're the one who
That's
keeps
why-
asking me if I'll watch them.
That's why he wants to stay at your house, because he knows you're a sucker.
I am a sucker. Those cheeks. He's gonna get tall again. He's got these cheeks. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so cute.
I was looking at him yesterday or the day before. Didn't have a shirt on, and he's getting a little bit of a belly, but the rest of him looks
It's
like
so
he
tiny.
came straight out of Auschwitz.
That's what I'm saying.
It's
He's
just-
gonna shoot right back up again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's
No, because he's getting a little bit of a pot belly.
you can see his ribs, but yet he's got a belly. Yeah. Won't be long.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those pants. Well, luckily short season's right.
Well,
around the-
Paige already ordered him pants that go from here to who knows where.
They're way
You
too
got to
long.
roll them up. And these will fit you in 10 years.
Well, you get tired of buying them. So you just buy them
Since-
way too big.
Since you got them a good deal. So I'm like, whatever. I don't care.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
Yeah, roll them at the top, roll them at the bottom.
Thing is, I think Mom did the same thing for you because you never grew, so your kids were always rolled, and Grandma put a dart in him here and a dart in him here, and he'll grow into them eventually.
Yeah. I grew into them, and then I outgrew them.
Yeah, and you definitely,
All right.
Yeah.
That's enough.
he's got metal shavings all over.
I-
They're like glistening.
It's like glitter.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right.
I try to clean up, but it doesn't always work.
Mm.
All right. We're ready to get started.
I mean, are we gonna get started? Because aren't we about finished?
I don't know. How long has it been?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't start my timer.
It's about halfway through. Oh,
That's all right.
you're making me
Life
laugh
is
too hard.
good. I know, but we all need to laugh.
Sure.
We do. Believe me.
So, we've had a couple extra episodes between the last time we were in Hebrews to this one. So, just a brief recap of what we already covered. In our last episode, we covered how Jesus was, how Jesus and Melchizedek compared to each other,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. And again, we're in Hebrews. Well, that was in Hebrews 7, 1 through 4.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're jumping back to Hebrews 7, 11 through 28, which we came to because of Hebrews 11, 5.
No.
It's getting confusing.
I know. There's a lot of Hebrews.
It's a lot of Hebrews.
It's a lot of Hebrews.
Like the entire Hebrew nation is full of Hebrews.
Oh, we should do stand-up comedy.
Okay. Stop it.
You need a tissue?
All right. So we covered the whole Jesus, why Jesus came from the order of Melchizedek. And again, it was because Jesus did not come from the Levitical line. He came from the line of Judah, which did not, traditionally was not the tribe for the priesthood.
Mm-hmm.
Priesthood came from the Levite line.
Yes, I remember.
But Jesus is our high priest, and at the same time, he's the King of Kings. So he's a priestly king that didn't come from the line of Levi, so that's why he is said to be in the order of Melchizedek. So now we are going to go back into Hebrews 7, 11 through 28. We already covered Hebrews 11, but I will reread that. And then I'll read 12 and 13. And we'll just do a couple verses. I'll read a couple verses and just kind of break it down. My goal is to get through this tonight.
Okay. I don't have notes, so I have no idea if we're going to get there or not.
Okay. So
let's roll with it.
I'm going to try to not go too deep. And just kind of stay at surface level and just kind of cover this.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, exactly.
You said Hebrews 7?
Yep.
11?
11 through 28.
Okay.
So I want to read 11 through 13 first.
Okay.
Now, if perfection had been attainable through the Levitical priesthood, for under it the people received the law, what further need would there have been for another priest to arise after the order of Melchizedek, rather than one named after the order of Aaron? For when there is a change in the priesthood, there is necessarily a change in the law as well. For the one of whom these things are spoken belonged to another tribe, from which no one has ever served at the altar. So, verse 12 and 13 here, this is talking about if there's a change in the priesthood, then there is going to be a change in the law. The best way that I can compare that to us here in the U.S. is whenever we get a new president.
And I knew you were going to say that.
We get a new president every 4 years. And during the campaign, there's always a bunch of promises. We need to change this. We need to change that. These are the changes.
Yep. Yep.
See, now you threw me off.
That's sorry. No, sorry.
But we get a new president,
Yep.
and they have all these changes that they want to make. Well, the same thing kind of happened back for, these ancient Israelites, because something else we want to cover, hopefully, in today's episode, is that there was a term limit to the current high priest.
Okay.
Because they couldn't live forever. So no matter what, that high priest is going to eventually die, and somebody else would have to be elected new high priest.
Okay.
Well, when doing that, and then the other possible correlation I thought of was with the Pope. So whenever we elect a new Pope, well, then that Pope may have some different ideas on how things should be done and could possibly change things. So it's that same general concept where with the Pope, they'll be Pope until they die.
Right. Yeah.
But then after they die, typically, then they're going to have to elect somebody else to be Pope. Well, that's kind of the way it was for the high priest. They had to have somebody acting as high priest because that person wasn't going to be there forever.
Right.
So whenever they got that new priest, again, they may have different ideas, and there would be possibly new laws that came into effect because of that. But the thing is, as we look at verse 13, for the one of whom these things are spoken, well, this is referring to Jesus.
Okay.
Because this is all about Jesus. Jesus belonged to another tribe, from which no one has ever served at the altar. We know that Jesus came from the line of Judah. There's plenty of documentation to back that up. There's no question about that. And the fact is, nobody from the line of Judah, ever served as a priest. They never served at the altar as a priest, because that's not the way the law was written. And we'll get into that more, because there's more talk about that as we keep going. So, verse 14 through 16. For it is evident that our Lord was descended from Judah, and in connection with that tribe, Moses said nothing about priests. This becomes even more evident when another priest arises in the likeness of Melchizedek, who has become a priest not on the basis of a legal requirement concerning bodily descent, but by the power of an indestructible life. So, again, proof. I mean, there's no question that Jesus came from the line of Judah.
Right.
That's what they're saying here. And again, now this is saying, same thing I just said, Moses never gave the authority to anybody outside the Levites to be priest. But then again, it's talking about somebody rising in the similarities of Melchizedek, so being a priestly king. But then verse 16, who has become a priest not on the basis of a legal requirement concerning bodily descent. That means it's not based on his bloodline. Again, this is going back to the whole line of Judah and the Levites. It's not based on the fact that he's a Levite, therefore he's a priest. No, he is breaking that tradition.
Right.
He is coming from the line of Judah, but yet becoming a priest. Not based on the fact that he's coming from the line of any line.
Right.
It's based on an indestructible life. And by indestructible life, yes, Jesus was killed.
Yeah.
On a cross.
Yes.
But in 3 days,
Yep.
he rose again. And it wasn't a secret that he rose from the dead. So that is the idea of this indestructible life. So it's not based on his bloodline. It's based on who he was and how he lived his life. So that is the biggest thing that they're talking about here. Okay, breathe. Oh,
What's your pulse at?
I don't know. That's a good question. Anyways, that was okay. So now we are moving on to verse 17 through 19. For it is witnessed of him, you are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. For on one hand, a former commandment is set aside because of its weakness and uselessness, for the law made nothing perfect. But on the other hand, a better hope is introduced through which we draw near to God. So, once again, they're talking about this order of Melchizedek. But then it's talking about just two sides of a coin, or one hand and the other hand. So on the one hand, you had which is something I actually forgot to mention in the first section because somebody was being mean. But
I'm just trying to keep you on track.
The whole concept of the fact that there's a change in the law. Well, what was the change of the law whenever we got the new priest? The new priest being Jesus. Well, we moved from the old law or the old covenant to a new covenant. So we changed from the covenant of law to the covenant of grace. And that was a change of the law that took place in that. And the reason I mentioned that is because of going back to this two hands. So on one hand, the former commandment that is mentioned is talking about the old covenant, so the covenant of law. And again, it's saying that it was useless, it was weak, it made nothing perfect. So the old law, it wasn't perfect. So on the other hand, there's a better hope. And that better hope, and this is why we're here, we're talking about this drawing near to God. So this better hope, it's through this better hope that we can draw near to God.
Okay.
Well, where's this better hope coming from? This better hope is coming from Jesus, from who he was. The fact that he was designated a high priest, even though he didn't come from the line of Levi. So now let's go ahead and continue on. Verse 20 and 21. And it was not without an oath, for those who formerly became priests were made such without an oath. But this one was made a priest with an oath by the one who said to him, the Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever. So this whole idea of oaths, how this is saying, for those who formerly became priests were made such without an oath. So this is kind of what I started hinting at, is the fact that if you were a Levite,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't have to, put your hand on a Bible and swear in saying you're going to do everything according to, scripture. No, you're a priest just because you
You
were
came from that line.
born. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just because you're a Levite,
Mm-hmm.
your great grandfather was Levi, you're a priest.
Mm.
Like you don't have a choice, you're a
Right.
priest.
Mm.
So at the same time, if you're in any of the other 11 tribes and you wanted to be a priest, you couldn't because you got the wrong bloodline.
Mm.
So there was no oath, there was no requirement. The only requirement was who was your dad. That was the only requirement to being a priest. But with Jesus, there was an oath. In this little quote, the Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever. That comes from Psalms 110:4. And so this is an oath that God is making about Jesus, saying Jesus is going to be a priest forever
Mm.
in the order of Melchizedek. So that's why it's, this is all tying together. And I'm just, okay, I'm not going to get too deep. So we're going to, let me actually cover everything though. Yeah, I think I did.
Oh, were you not following your notes?
Kind of, not really.
Mm.
Are you surprised?
Not really.
Verse 22. This makes Jesus the guarantor of a better covenant.
Mm.
So that just means that Jesus guarantees a better covenant.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure the covenant of grace is a better covenant than the covenant of law.
I would say so.
I think so, but I guess I was never under the covenant of law,
Right.
so I can't really say for sure. 23 and 24. The former priests were many in number because they were prevented by death from continuing in office.
Okay.
But he holds his priesthood permanently because he continues forever. So this is something I've already kind of mentioned, in the fact that as a Levite, well, one, you don't have a choice. If
Right.
you're a Levite, you're a priest.
You're a priest.
If you're not a Levite, you're not a priest.
Right.
But at the same time, even if you do take on the priesthood, your terms are still limited because you're only going to live so long.
Right.
So no matter what, there's going to be an end to your term.
Right.
And that's why there's so many priests. The entire tribe of Levi
Mm-hmm.
are priests because they need those numbers because just to replenish.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with Jesus, Jesus is God.
Mm-hmm.
So he also has the power to be omnipresent, so he can
Mm-hmm.
be everywhere at once, and omniscient, and all those other omnis and all the other great attributes. That actually have an article on
he does.
priesthoodthinking.com.
Yes, he does.
The communicable and incommunicable
Yep.
attributes of God.
Yep.
I'm surprised I remember that. Anyways, that kind of threw me off though. Hold on.
Mind you, he did it, not me.
That one was mine.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, so they were limited. Jesus is not limited. Jesus is eternal. Jesus is going to be with us till the end of time. So throughout our lifetime, throughout our children, again, Jesus is God. God was the same yesterday as he is today, and he'll be the same tomorrow. So God is, he's just going to be here. So that is the big difference here, because we don't have to worry about death taking away our high priest. Okay.
It makes me smile. It doesn't make you
It does.
smile. I mean, I'm sitting here going, yeah,
Yes.
that's exactly right.
So I'm on 25 and 26, right?
You just finished 23 and 24? I wrote down 23 and 24.
Okay. So 25 and 26. Consequently, he is able to save to the uttermost those who draw near to God through him, since he always lives to make intercession for them. For it was indeed fitting that we should have such a high priest, holy, innocent, unstained, separated from sinners, and exalted above the heavens. So these two verses right here really highlight who Jesus is,
Mm-hmm.
why we need Jesus, and why he makes a perfect high priest. So he is saving to the uttermost those who draw near to God. Okay, this is why we're here. We're talking about drawing near to God. That's why we're even in these verses. But it's through him. Jesus is our mediator. We need Jesus as our high priest and mediator in order to have that connection to God, to the Father. Like we talked about the last time we had an episode on this, is through the death of Jesus. When Jesus died on the cross, the veil between the temple and the Holy of Holies was torn. And that symbolized the fact that there's no longer anything between us except for Jesus. So Jesus is becoming basically that veil. And it is through Jesus that we now have access to the Holy of Holies, where before nobody had access to the Holy of Holies except for I think it was maybe the high priest or one priest a year would
go
go
to that
in
room, right?
to burn incense.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So, yeah, now we all have access to God through Jesus. And that's what this is talking about. And the reason he does qualify as high priest is because he is holy, innocent, unstained, separated from us sinners, and exalted above the heavens. Oh, so I don't know how much time we got left. Probably none. We're almost done. 27. He has no need, like those high priests, to offer sacrifices daily, first for his own sins and then for those of the people, since he did this once for all when he offered up himself. This is a very interesting point. As Levitical priest, they have a 9 to 5. They get up, they go to work, they're just going to the temple to offer sacrifices. Before they could start offering sacrifices, they had to make a sacrifice for their own sins. Every morning, they had to make a sacrifice for their own sins to cleanse themselves before they could offer sacrifices for the other people that they're going to be sacrificing for. So they had to start every day doing this. With Jesus, yes, he had to make a sacrifice, but once for all time.
Right.
He sacrificed up his own body, his own life, and died on the cross to wash away not only his sins, but all of our sins.
Right. Yep.
So moving on, 28. This is the last one. For the law appoints what?
This is the last one.
This is the last one. We're almost done. Okay. 28. For the law appoints men in their weakness as high priest, but the word of the oath, which came later than the law, appoints a son who has been made perfect forever. So this whole idea of weakness, like we were talking about a few times already during this podcast, the Levitical line, they didn't have to take an oath. They were just automatically appointed priests.
Right.
But they were flawed. And it didn't matter, how big weaknesses they had, how small weaknesses, whether they wanted to do it, whether they didn't want to do it. It didn't matter. If you were a Levite, you were
it's what you did.
a priest.
Yep.
But with Jesus was appointed, again, we talked about that oath, the oath that came from Psalm 110:4, that God made about Jesus, and that Jesus was going to be a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. Well, that oath came after the formation of the Old Testament law from those tribes and the whole Levite priesthood. So this oath came after that. So technically, this oath would trump the Old Testament's formulation of the tribe of Levi and the other tribes. So therefore, Jesus technically has more authority. Not only that, is that oath came directly from God. And that oath was appointing Jesus as high priest, as our mediator, to give us access to God
For eternity.
So that is something we have to look forward to, or something we should be grateful for.
Yep.
And I think that going to finish up our tangent, and we should be going back to Hebrews 11. No, where were we actually?
We're at 7-Eleven. I say 7-Eleven. We're at the 7-Eleven. I don't know.
No, we're going back to 11:6.
Okay, gotcha.
Hebrews 11:6. So.
All right. So I'm cutting Mitchell off because he's out of time.
Okay.
So we thank you for joining us. Please leave a comment on this video or go to the contact page on purefaithliving.com to send us a message. And as always, if you like what you hear, then we ask that you share this show with others so we can all work together in spreading the good news of Jesus Christ. Don't forget to subscribe, and we will see you again next time.
Have a blessed day, everybody.